This is Nick Nilsson, Mad Scientist of Muscle, and what I've got for you today here is a quick review of a cool piece of training equipment called the Mad Spotter hooks. Now, let me give you a close-up view of this here. The purpose of this hook is very simple. You hang these hooks from a bar, and you hang a dumbbell from the hook. This allows you, instead of having to kick up a weight either on flat decline or incline bench, to the top position to press. So it basically takes spotting out of the movement in terms of helping you get set up. It's a fantastic method, and if you've ever seen power hooks, those have been around for a while. This is kind of an updated version of it. Pretty much exactly the same concept, but here's kind of the pros and cons of this particular version. Now, first thing you're going to notice here compared to the regular power hooks is this is just like a cradle here. It doesn't wrap around the dumbbell handle, which again has its pros and cons. What I found, it actually can be a bit more difficult to get the weight up into the top position. When I'm using the ones with the wraparound handle, I can grab the whole thing, heave it on, and then put it here. It's not quite as easy to do that with this open design, but I did find it to be extremely effective for what its purpose is intended to, which is to set weight up higher and allow you to start from the top rather than having to kick weight up into that bottom position, especially in the incline bench. It does get very challenging when you start getting into heavier weights. So what I recommend you do first here is set up without any weight at all on these hooks. So get yourself a bench. You're going to need a rack for this, either a Smith machine, power rack, anything that you can hang these hooks on that's solid is what you're going to need here. If you're doing incline, you want to be able to grip onto here so that you can push up a little bit and then get into the movement and then reload. So you don't want it to be too high up. You don't want it to be too low as well. So there's kind of something that you're gonna have to play with in terms of height. This is the incline setup. You do the same thing for flat. You do the same thing for decline. Flat, I find, for me personally, it's easier to get weight into the bottom position to flat. For decline, this is actually very useful because otherwise, you're fighting with sitting weights on your leg and then lying back, or having to find a person to spot you to hand you the heavier loads. So luckily, because you're using heavier loads like on decline and flat, you don't have to lift the dumbbell up as high to hook it onto here. When you're using this on incline, that's honestly one of the biggest challenges, not only for these hooks, but for the regular hooks, power hooks that wrap around with the handle as well. So essentially what you want to do here is, if you're using lighter weight, this is pretty easy. So this is a 40-pound dumbbell. You just hold it up here. You set it right on the hook. You're good to go. Alternatively, you can set the hook right on here so it's ready like that, and then set it up like that. As you get into heavier weights, you may want to experiment with both to see what you find easier in terms of getting heavier loads up. What I find, and I'll show you this, once I get into like 80-85 pound dumbbells up here, I do have a technique that allows me to tip it up, get it up to here, and then boom, you set it right here. And it's really not that difficult to do as long as you're strong enough to do it safely. So that's the other key. Now, here's what this looks like with a set done with 40-pound dumbbells. So shift it around. When you're taking these off the rack, you want to kind of grip towards the back of the handle and then push it up, and then the handle comes off. And then you're just pressing as you regularly would. And when you're done, hook it back on. Make sure that the hooks are hooked. Clearly that's something you want to be sure of when you're racking any dumbbell or barbell or anything. Make sure that these are hooked, otherwise if you miss the hook, you're going to get into a pretty awkward position pretty fast. Now, in terms of solid construction, these are going to be able to hold up to pretty much anything you can press. I didn't have any issues putting 120-pound dumbbells on here, 125s. Didn't have any bearing on whether these are going to bend, not bend, or what have you. Strength is not an issue with this. It's more, do you find the feel of these comfortable or uncomfortable? Now, personally, with this thing under here, as you get into heavier weights, it's going to potentially kind of dig into your hand a little bit more. I didn't find it uncomfortable. It's something you'll notice, but I didn't find it uncomfortable at all. So if you think that's going to feel weird on your hands, that's not something you really need to worry about. The hooks on here are fairly good size. They're not going to accommodate a fat bar handle though. So if you got pro style handles that kind of start thin on the outside and get thicker in the middle, this is going to handle it quite well because the hook's on the outside and the thicker part is going to be in the middle. So again, no issues there whatsoever with these kind of handles. So what I'm going to do here is come back and show you how I get into position for these dumbbells with a heavier weight. Alright, so once you start getting into the heavier weights, the way to get these into position kind of changes a little bit. So you see me demonstrate with the 40s, you can throw those around. As long as you're strong enough to throw them around, it's really not any challenge at all. But because these hooks are designed to prevent you from having to really futz around with kicking weights back and stuff, it's really important that you learn the technique for getting heavier loads into position, because that's really the purpose of having these hooks in the first place. So for me, the easiest way I've found to get this into position could be something you might need to practice with a little bit, but other than having somebody assist you with getting the dumbbells into position, this is the easiest way I've found, especially with heavier weights. So I've got a pair of 105-pound dumbbells here. It's getting into some decent weight. Now, take your dumbbell, set it on the bench like so. What you're going to do here is maneuver one end off the bench, lower it down a little bit so you can get your other fingers underneath the other side of the dumbbell. This is going to allow you to hold the dumbbell in a cradle, basically underneath the plates. Then you're going to kick and basically heave the weight up to your upper chest, and then set it up on the racks, on the hooks. So, like I said, this is by far the easiest, other than having somebody else help you, which kind of defeats the purpose of having hooks where you don't need to have a spotter. So here's what it looks like. Hold one handle like this with one hand, tilt it like that, grip underneath, tilt it down, and now you're cradling the dumbbell. Now you're going to do kind of a continental to the upper chest, so almost like a hip-based movement, like a swing, like a hip thrust, and then you're just going to heave it up to your upper chest like this. And make sure you've got a good grip on those plates. You don't want to go flinging the dumbbell around. Like I said, something you may want to practice or see if you can come up with a better way. For me, this is the easiest way that I've found. So here's what it looks like on the other side. Again, pick it up, set it on top of your bench, grip it, tilt it down, grip underneath. Now, again, keep a good grip on here, and then you're going to hitch it right up to the top. And this allows you to set it right at chest level relatively easily. Alright, so here's what it looks like pressing the 105s. Now, this is really the purpose of having these hooks, is not needing to have a spotter to work with heavier loads like this. Stuff that you'd have a really hard time kicking up to your shoulders to get into position on your own, especially on the incline press. So, grip on, exactly like with lighter weight. Make sure you're dug in with your feet pressed into the floor. Your knees are able to exert some backwards tension here so that you're basically nice and solid on the bench. And just like with lighter weight, make sure that you're hooking these, contacting and then hooking before you let go of the weights. So again, very important on that count, just like with any hooks, just like with any racks. Alright, so you're done with your sets. Now, how do you get these dumbbells back off of here and back safely onto the floor? Because, obviously the reason you're having these hooks is to do the exercise more safely. And what I've found here is basically take what you did the first time and do it kind of the opposite way. Not completely, but kind of. So you're going to grab here, you're going to lift it up from your chest, step out, kneel down on one knee, then set the dumbbell on the bench, and then it's easy from there. So here's what that looks like. You can grip on here, hug it right into your chest, like so. So you're supporting it right up here in your upper chest and on top, so you got good control of the weight. Now, and and easy as that. Now, basically, is it perfect? No, but if you're strong enough to press these kind of dumbbells, you should be strong enough to do something like this to get them back down. So if you can get them up there, you can certainly get them back down like this. So again, walk into it, get it resting on your upper chest, hold it on here, and then you're basically using your entire body to support it. And then kneel down, and then you can set it down on the bench. It's going to make contact. You don't need to super control it, but that's really the easiest way to get this weight set. You pick it up, set it on the floor, and you're good to go. Now, since I do have a pair of the original power hooks that have the wraparound, I'm going to show you what the difference is with that. So here's what that looks like. As you can see, basically the same design. This puts the handle of the dumbbell right in here and then wraps around like Velcro and attaches onto itself. So essentially what you do, hook that in and then loop it around and attach it onto itself. So that's what it looks like on here, wrapped around. Now, this doesn't preclude you from using the same racking technique as I showed you with this. You basically would be doing the same thing, setting this up on here, but with the Velcro completely open. Set the dumbbell in and then wrap the Velcro around. This basically eliminates that entire need to wrap the Velcro around. Now, do you need this Velcro strap around here? For me, the answer is no. What I did find in this is that having it open like that, because you're gripping on the dumbbell, you don't really need to have it fully enclosed with Velcro. It's not necessary. You're not going to be running around like pushing these things up so they spill out. It's not going to happen. It's not how it works. So having that option of an open thing, to me, doesn't really make much difference. The only difference to me is basically how it feels on your hand. This is a little bit different because you're gripping more on the steel here. This, because it's fully wrapped around, opens up the grip a little bit, makes the grip a little bit more squishy. Still excellent grip on here. Either one of these options are good. I actually, if I had to have a preference, I would say the Mad Spotter hooks, that version, I do like a bit better because they're easier to get on and off, and I honestly didn't find really any serious difference that would make me want to say I've got to have the wraparound Velcro on here. So again, these are very strong, they're very useful, and if you're looking for something to help you, especially in a home gym situation, to help you get into heavier loads, into heavier weights safely, even at a regular gym, it's a pain in the butt trying to find good spotters. You've probably seen videos of guys pressing a crap ton of weight, and you know, they get one dumbbell up and then their spotter floats it up on the other side, puts them off balance. This, even if you do have spotters available, rather than holding one up and having them hold another one up for you and trying to get balanced at the start, this allows you to start balanced. And if anybody tells you, you know, why you're using something if you can't, why you're using a weight if you can't get it up into position yourself, because it's, to me, it's kind of like the why you use straps when you're deadlifting kind of argument, because then you're limiting yourself purposefully to how much weight you can use in a completely unrelated movement, which means getting the dumbbell safely up to the top position. Your pecs don't care how much you can get into the top position, they care what you can actually press. And being able to take that out of the equation, that's the main benefit of this. It's going to be safer, it's going to be a better movement, and you're basically going to be able to focus on lifting the weight rather than trying to worry about getting these dumbbells into position, one here, one there, awkwardly, potentially losing balance, potentially overstretching the shoulder joint, potentially hurting your back. Once you get into those heavier loads, it gets more and more important. It's, you know, if you're pressing 35s, 40s, 50s, if that's heavy for you, these are going to be a really good thing too. If that's just a warm-up for you, you don't need to worry about using these on your warm-up sets, clearly. But once you start getting into the heavier loads, honestly, I would say these are absolutely a necessity. You can't go wrong with these. They're affordable, they fit in a gym bag, and you're probably going to have a lot of people trying to borrow these once you start using them. So overall, really favorable impression of these Mad Spotter hooks. They're something I would highly recommend. They're durable, they're going to last you a lifetime. They're not going to bend with heavy weights, and once you kind of master the way of getting the weights up into position, I mean, the incline is the hardest one to do. Once you start getting into the flat ones, you can pick it up, same as I showed you there before, and just basically hold it up and then set it there. You don't even need to get it up to the front of your chest. And for declines, it's even easier because you're not lifting the weight up as high. But great piece of equipment, and definitely worth the price.